Howdy, and welcome to LeeReads, where I talk about the books I've been reading and enjoying lately. This is my June and July reading wrap-up, or the highlights of what I read in those months. And I was actually able to read several anticipated, fairly new releases that I'm excited to tell you about today. The first is an adult fantasy, The Unicorn Hunters by Katherine Arden. Katherine Arden first came to my attention with her Winter Night trilogy, beginning with the book The Bear and the Nightingale, a historical fantasy set in Russia with lots of Slavic folklore, following this girl who does not quite follow the path that everyone expects her to take. The main character, Vasya, can see the spirits that protect her home in the woods and also work throughout Russia. And she is trying to help them survive against an influence that is determined to destroy them. That's a very high-level summary of that trilogy. It's great. A few years later, Katherine Arden wrote The Warm Hands of Ghost, which is a World War I retelling following a nurse who is looking for her brother that was missing in World War I. And it also flashes back to tell of what her brother was going through during this time. That one was a darker twist, but still had these background magical elements that sustained the story. With The Unicorn Hunters, we get a story in a similar vein where Katherine Arden has taken some real historical figures, added magic to the world, and rewritten that story in a sense. This follows Anne of Brittany, who is a very young ruler of this small nation next to France, the much more powerful nation of France. The king is determined to marry her and subsume Brittany into his realm, and she is trying to stave this off at any means, even if that means arranging another illicit betrothment behind the King of France's back. The way that magic works in this world is there is a guild of people who can scry and spy and set prophecy. They are able to see everywhere, so each court has their own hired to help aid in communication and keep tabs on their enemies. But there's one place where this magic cannot penetrate this magical wood, where Anne ends up fleeing to enact this marriage plot and encounters a unicorn, which are fabled creatures. After encountering this unicorn, she meets this man of magic, and the plots deepen from there. The author of the acclaimed Winter Night trilogy turns the real history of a remarkable woman into an unforgettable tale of mystery, enchantment, and the price of power. If you enjoyed the Winter Night trilogy, historical fantasy, give this one a try. Next, I finally read this book that I've been holding on to since it came out in December. I think I bought it immediately and was just waiting for the right time to read it. The Everlasting by Alex E. Harrow. I believe Sterling House is by this author. The Everlasting is a complicated story. This nation has been at war for a while and is built upon the legend of Una Everlasting, this feared, famous knight who saved the life of the queen and allowed their monarchy to become established in the first place. So many years later, our main character serves in this army, becomes wounded. They save the pride of the nation, and then he returns back to his life of being a historian and encounters this book that is telling the life of Una Everlasting, which is his chosen research topic because throughout his life has become very attached to the story of this woman. There are hidden magics in this world, and he is presented with the opportunity basically to go back in time and retell Una Everlasting's story. So he gets to know her and gets to know the person behind the myth. From there, we launch this question of what is the truth behind a story? Is it more important to put down what you want people to think versus what the truth is? How does changing these legends change history, and how these alterations compound over one another across time. Our main character doesn't go back in time only once to meet Una Everlasting. It is many times as he is being manipulated by people in power to try to get him to present the story exactly how they want it. Because of the time repeats, it does feel a little bit like a Groundhog Day type story where we are reliving certain events or certain parts of the stories. However, I think every time it's being retold, it is from a different angle or a different perspective that makes it different enough. And there are enough changes that really kept me engaged with these repeats. If that sort of thing's not your favorite, it may diminish your enjoyment of the story. However, despite that and those repeats, the emotional connection between the characters is very deep. I would highly recommend this story. It is emotionally gripping and almost tormented, and yet there is hope in the story as well. I think that's all I should say about it. Another book that I've been looking forward to for a while comes out, I believe, in August, and I was able to get an advanced digital copy from NetGalley, which I recently finished up and highly enjoyed it. This is the most recent novel by Lisa Kleypas. This I would call firmly historical with a romantic subplot. The romance isn't as centered as in Lisa Kleypas' other actual historical romance stories. That centers the main character, Raina. She is an economist in London in, I think this is like the late-ish 1800s, and she feels as though she is trapped between many different worlds, many different levels of society. Her father was this rich English banker, and her mother was a Spanish dancer that he kept as a mistress, so she grew up as a bastard, so she was never able to fully enter society. She never really got to know her father's family, never really felt fully English, but also never really felt fully Spanish because her mother was exiled from the family for becoming this man's mistress. So she grows up in London and realizes that she has a knack and a genius mind for money and economics. But of course, in this time, women are basically considered property. Only recently have they been allowed to open their own bank accounts, and that's really only in conjunction with like a man signing for you. And she has found success in publishing various books on economics for women. And what she really wants to do is open a women's only bank. Over the years, she befriended this man who owns a bank, and he has agreed that he will open a branch of his bank that is, he calls ladies only, women's only. So they're working through that, but this banker may not be as pure of heart as we might hope. The Metropolitan Police, involving some characters from Lisa Kleypas' previous works, want to investigate this banker, but also specifically Raina, to see if she is working with him to kind of defraud the investors. Is she innocent or is she in on the plot? Making it a little bit more complicated is Raina, she came into this wealth, she purchases this nice house, she needs some staff for it, and can only really afford to hire former criminals that are being released on parole into like a workers program, which the police find very suspicious. So they decide to place one of their own as the butler to keep an eye on the house and learn about Raina and figure out what's going on. This particular constable, he's tired of these really long overnight shifts, not having a great life, not really being able to make an impact on these criminals he's catching, and is promised that if he does this job well and they get the evidence that they need in order to prosecute this banker, he will be set up with a much better position. So he's happy to do that, of course, until he enters the household as this butler and meets Raina. Is she really just this earnest and doesn't know what she is really doing and trying to figure it out? Or is there really some criminal conspiracy going on here? There's a strong found family aspect where she's gathering these people around her who also never seem to quite fit, and they can try to build something together. If you're a fan of Lisa Kleypas, I highly recommend that you pick it up. It is a lot more historical than historical romance feeling, but I still found it very, very enjoyable and would recommend it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know what are the new releases that you've read recently that you might recommend to me. And as always, don't forget to support your local library. Thanks. Bye.